failing to care about jobs for the middle class. Joining me now is Patrick Gaspard, Executive Director of the Democratic National Committee, and Democratic strategist Tad Devine. Thank you both for joining me tonight.
Thank you so much for having us on, Rev.
Let me start with you, Patrick. How will the DNC support the president's plan to run against a do-nothing Congress?
Well, Rev, let me just back up for a quick second, if I could. You just laid out some important metrics about the economy. I want to also note that as previewed today in the New York Times, it's clear that under this president, under his policies, we've managed to grow manufacturing jobs in this country for the first time since 1997. Contrast that with the Bush administration, where manufacturing declined by 29% in this country. We've managed to grow manufacturing for 2 straight years now. You can trust that at the DNC and in the president's campaign, we're going to continue to amplify all the great success that we've had in growing this economy. Sure, there's quite a way to go still. Americans are still struggling to have economic security, but it's clear with 21 straight months of private sector job growth, Reverend, and with the great news that we had today in manufacturing, in some increase in consumer confidence, that we're beginning to turn this corner here, and the vision that this president has laid and the foundation that he's laid in his budget, and all the great work that he did in making sure that we preserve the iconic American automobile industry, while Republicans like Mitt Romney were out there saying, "Let Detroit die." It's abundantly clear that those policies are taking hold. We're having some success, and we're going to continue to knock on doors, make phone calls, and press the case.
That's very impressive, clearly, when you compare the fact that under Bush, construction jobs were down 29%. Tad, will that resonate with voters, particularly middle-class voters? Because when you're talking about manufacturing jobs, you're talking about jobs that make middle-class families become possible for them to sustain themselves.
Reverend, I think it will resonate, because I think the president's record is coming now into full view. You know, when he was inaugurated, that 1 month in January of 2009, this country lost 820,000 jobs in that 1 month. In the next 3 months, we lost 2.2 million jobs. 3 million jobs in 4 months after he became president. And tomorrow, when the jobs report comes out, I think we will see that this country has created over 3 million private sector jobs in the last 22 months. I think that's going to put things into perspective for people. And they're going to have a choice. Do they want a president who's adopted policies that are very different from George Bush? Or do they want a Republican president, all of whom the candidates have said they will take the Bush policies, they'll put them back into force, and move this country in the direction that it was moved in under Bush, which was to the brink of a Great Depression?
Well, let me say this, Patrick. You can't blame one man for another man's deeds. But let's look at Willard. While you have talked about every month the increase of jobs, the president bailed out the auto industry. Willard wrote November 2008 in the New York Times an op-ed titled, "Let Detroit Go Bankrupt." Let me read what he said. This is Willard speaking. "If General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler get their bailout that their chief executive asked for yesterday, you can kiss the American automotive industry goodbye." Well, let's look at the goodbye of the automotive industry, Willard. Chrysler is still there with a 26% increase. Ford, 17% increase. General Motors, 14% increase. Looks like Willard was a little off the mark, Patrick.
I'd say he was way off the mark, Reverend. That's a great point. And let's look at the facts here. As a consequence of the courageous position that the president took in the face of ferocious opposition from Republicans like Mitt Romney and every Republican, all the Tea Party Republicans on Capitol Hill, we preserved 1.4 million jobs in the heartland of this country in the automobile industry. Look at what Mitt Romney did when he was governor of Massachusetts. Under Mitt Romney, that state declined in manufacturing at twice the national average, Rev, and they ranked 47 out of 50th in job growth overall in this country. So Mitt Romney likes to say that he's going to conduct a campaign and prosecute a case about the economy. We welcome that conversation against a governor who ranked 47th out of 50th in this nation on job growth.
And I might add that Ford was the only one of them that didn't get a bailout. Tad, let me ask you this. David Axelrod has called Willard Mr. 25%. You're a political strategist. I mean, how do you deal with a guy that, with all this money, with all of the implosion of the flavors of the month that have challenged him, he can't get over 25%? What's going on here?
Well, I think what's going on is Republicans, conservative Republicans, base Republicans, don't like Mitt Romney. And there's a reason they don't like him. He has changed his position on fundamental issues. When I worked against Romney in 1994 for Senator Kennedy in that Senate race, he was strongly pro-choice. He said publicly he'd be better on gay rights than Ted Kennedy. He said global climate change was happening. He supported science's view. And now he's changed his position on all of that to appease the right wing of his own party. I mean, this was a guy who wanted to let Detroit go under, but was more than ready to bail out his friends on Wall Street when they needed help. So I think that's all going to come into perspective. And I think the Republicans don't like him for a simple reason. They don't think he's authentic. They don't believe a word he says. And he's been on both sides of big issues that matter to them.
So you beat this guy. You were part of the Kennedy campaign that beat him in Massachusetts.
Yeah, and
he was on the other side of the issues that he is now.
That's right. And, you know, I went to Marion, Indiana in 1994, made some ads for that campaign and talked to Striking Workers, a company that was put out of business by Mitt Romney. They came in there, they fired everybody, they rehired 3/4 of the workers at 3/4 of the former pay that they had. The workers they didn't rehire, most of them were women, some of them pregnant women, older workers. They took the most vulnerable people out of the workforce and they turned it into a profit center. And after several years, they ran that company into bankruptcy, took $100 million and put it in their own pockets, and they left town. That's what Mitt Romney did.
No, Ted, not the job creator. Don't say that. Mr. Patrick Gaspard, let me ask you about the one question I need to ask you. The congressional races. You're the executive director of DNC. How do we deal with the fact that this Congress has gone in approval numbers from 24% in May down now in December to 11%? Are you confident that a lot of the newly elected Tea Party congressmen can be defeated and that the DNC has a shot of trying to take back the Congress?
Reverend, I am convinced that Republicans in this Congress, Tea Party leaders in this Congress have been exposed. If you look at all the data, it's abundantly clear that the places in this country where the Tea Party brand is at its absolute lowest are places where Tea Party Republicans were actually elected in 2010. Let's be clear. 2010 was a rough year. Americans had to make a critical choice about the direction that this country was going in. And of course, the economy was the #1 issue that facing all Americans. During that election, Republicans ran with the promise that they would create jobs. From the moment that they stepped into Congress, and Mitch McConnell said that his #1 imperative was to make sure that Barack Obama was a one-term president, and every single Republican from Boehner, Cantor, to folks like Romney and Santorum, who've been cheerleading from the sidelines, all followed suit. So it's abundantly clear that they've been exposed, and I'm confident that when the conversation is had, when the contrast is made in this country, Americans are going to make the right choice, and they're going to send Barack Obama back to the White House with Democratic majorities in the House and Senate.
Patrick Gaspard and Tad Devine, thank you both very much for joining us tonight. Ahead,
thank you, Reverend.
The recall drive is hotter